of Indigenous peoples. So my talk today is called Back to Batoche Days, Honoring Métis Culture and Heritage. And so I'm going to tell you about what is Back to Batoche Days and talk about some historic sites important to Métis people and just how the event is important for celebrating and connecting Métis and helping other people, educate other people about Métis history and culture. So what is Back to Batoche Days? Well, it is an annual event, and it's been held, I think, for over 50 years now. I've attended it once. I've attended this past summer, but I've been to the historic site of Batoche before quite a while ago. So it was a long time since I visited there, and I wanted to go there again. But I wanted to specifically go Back to Batoche Days. That's what I'm going to talk about today, and I'll show you a few images, pictures I took, and you'll learn about why it's significant. So it's the site, Batoche is the site of something called the Battle of Batoche, which took place during the Northwest Resistance in 1885. And that followed a previous resistance called the Red River Resistance in 1869-70. And in both of those events, my ancestors played pretty prominent roles. The 1869-1870 Red River Resistance took place on my great-great-grandfather's, it broke out, I should say, the first active resistance broke out on my great-great-grandfather's land. His name was Andre No. When I talk about my ancestors, I'll use the pronunciation for their names they used was Andre No. Today, we use Nault because my English is my first language. So a lot of the Métis from that time, though, they left Red River, which is Manitoba today, and migrated westward because of their rights being denied when Manitoba joined Confederation. So this 1885 resistance was due to the same reasons, but it was much more on a much more violent scale and involved a lot more violence, and was armed resistance. And it ended in the Métis defeat, though they had some successes at various battles. So that's why, Batoche, the small town of Batoche, there's not really a town now, it's just a historic site with a museum, but that's why it's important. And the event itself commemorates the Métis culture, heritage, and the importance of Batoche and Métis history. And at the event, you'll be able to hear music, see dance that the Métis are known for, called the Red River Jig. There are fiddle competitions, horse and wagon rides, and Métis artists sell their works, and you can see a lot of the art and handicrafts at the event. So this year it was held July 20th to 23rd, and like I said, I was able to attend there and really had a great time. So what are some historic sites near Batoche? Well, Batoche itself, it's now a historic site. You can see in the background of that photograph a church, and that's one of the structures that remains from the period. A lot of the buildings were destroyed during the Northwest Resistance. I know my one ancestor's home was burned down during the resistance. Another relative's was burned down as well. But there's one house that's remaining there, and then the church and rectory, and a museum that's been put up there where you can find out about Métis culture. So it's a symbol of resilience and resistance for Métis, and it's hallowed ground. It's that's where the Métis, our ancestors, and fought to preserve Métis rights, and so it's fortunate that this is preserved. Parts of it are preserved, and we can go there today and learn about the history and the culture. One of the things you can see at this site is the cemetery, and on the left, that photograph is a mass grave that's at the cemetery, and it's a very important site for during the Back to Batoche celebrations. The Métis will gather at that gravesite and do ceremonies and honor our ancestors and relatives. And that has special meaning to me personally, because if you look on the right, you can't see very well here, though it's a bad picture. I took this when I took it was a rainy day, so that it was overcast, and I think that resulted in this not being a great picture. But the third name here, Damas Carrier, who's in the mass grave, is actually my ancestor. He's my great-great-grandfather, and he was killed on the last day of the Battle of Batoche, so that would have been May 12th, 1885. So he was only in his 30s, and he left behind his children and wife, and one of those children was my great-great-grandmother. And so there's a stone monument that was placed there, and you can see it, and then this cross that is highly visible. And yeah, so the other battles that were important besides the Battle of Batoche were the Battle of Duck Lake, Battle of Turin's Coulee, and Battle of Cut Knife. So I was able to go to the Battle of Duck Lake site and the Battle of Turin's Coulee site. And there, my ancestors, some were wounded or killed. A couple at Duck Lake were killed, a couple uncles, and some wounded, a couple uncles wounded. The most famous uncle I have is Gabriel Dumont, who's a third great granduncle. He's was one of the key leaders at in the Northwest Resistance, and he was wounded, but he fortunately survived. Right. And so this was, I also, like I said, visited nearby the Battle of Turin's Coulee historic site. And you can see here, it's a very peaceful, calm place today. It's a ravine area where the Métis concealed themselves. And Duck Lake was a victory for the Métis. Also, Turin's Coulee was a victory for Métis against the Canadian troops that were there. And there, two of my relatives died. A couple uncles were killed. One is named Joseph Vermette, another one was Saint Pierre Parenteau. So we go to those sites to remember them, and also the events that happened. But there's also, it's also not just do we commemorate our ancestors and remember them at this time, but there's also lots of celebrating and connecting that takes place at this event. So that's why I wanted to go, this past summer, and I hopefully will be going again this coming summer. Some people go every year, and you can meet people you haven't met before and connect to new relatives and members of the community. And here you can see things that we do at the event, like the Red River Jig. I'm going to show you a video clip. Hopefully it'll work properly. So it's a dance that the Métis are known for. I didn't get great photos of the booths where they were selling art and handicrafts, but here I did go to the Gabriel Dumont Institute, and I took a couple photographs there. And you can see here on the left is Louis Riel, who was our main leader, and during 1885 and 1869-70. And Gabriel Dumont, who I mentioned before, who was another key leader in 1885, and both of them are my relatives. So Louis Riel is my cousin, first cousin, 4 times removed. His cousin was my great-great-grandfather, Andre No. And then Gabriel Dumont was my third great-granduncle. And then his wife was married to his sister. His sister was married to a Parenteau, so his niece, Gabriel Dumont's niece, was married to my great-great-grandfather, the one I mentioned, who was killed at the Battle of Batoche. So he's an uncle as well. So I took those photos at the Gabriel Dumont Institute, and it showcases the Métis art. The Métis were known for, and still are known for, their beautiful art. And they were called the flower beadwork people by First Nations people like the Cree and Ojibwe. They called them the flower beadwork people. I remember always seeing those kinds of floral patterns at my aunt's home and uncle's homes. They had a lot of pillowcases and things with those patterns. And so it's a very familiar type of art to me. Okay, so I do have a little demonstration here of what the River Jig looks like. I don't know if it's going to work or if you can hear it, but there we go. So this is a recording I took of it, and very exciting dance to watch. And so we had all kinds of different dancers at the event doing the dance, and that was at the main stage there. And the Back to Batoche Days does not take place at the historic site, though. It's just down the road. So there's a whole area, open area. And this year was the biggest attendance they ever had. So I think they said something like 70,000 people attended the event over the 3 days. So it was, the biggest one ever, but it's been going on for about 50 years now. Oops, let's go to the next image. And here's another important symbol of Métis. It's the infinity flag, which was unfurled the first time in 1816 at the Battle of Seven Oaks. So we call it the Victory of Frog Plain. It was when the Métis had a conflict with employees of the Hudson's Bay Company. It was a great victory for the Métis. And that's when we became a nation for the first time. That's when that flag was flown, and the Métis began to consider themselves a nation. So you can see the beautiful flag here, and some Métis youth are carrying it. It's the procession at the opening ceremony for Back to Batoche. And here at the procession also, we have some Métis fiddlers. The Métis love fiddle music. Anytime you watch a documentary about the Métis, I guarantee you 100% of the time it'll have fiddle music in it. I don't think I've ever heard or seen a documentary without fiddle music. It's something Métis it's part of the culture, along with the Red River Jig. And you can see the woman in the background, the clothes she's wearing. It has some of that artwork I pointed out earlier with the beadwork. It's very beautiful. So this again would have been at the opening ceremony. And here, yeah, it was a great time to connect to relatives of mine that I only had met them online. So that's one thing. A lot of people point out the problems with social media today, rightfully so. But one of the great things about social media, could you please mute your mics, please? One of the great things about social media, though, is we have all these groups from Métis for sharing genealogical information, for connecting to our families. So I met some of these relatives of mine online. It's really interesting. So the woman on my right, the second person to my right, her name is Carmen Carrier, and so she's a descendant of the brother of my great-great-grandfather. But the interesting story is that after he died at Batoche, the children, they had 5 or 6 children, and the mother remarried someone and stayed in Saskatchewan. So all the children they're basically orphaned pretty much, but they were raised by her great-great-grandfather. So so this is the first time we met. So we're descendants of those 2 carriers. So her children are on her left, and her children, the one, and then her left is her son. And then there's a couple daughters in there, and then there's 2 of the daughters are from her sister. But then there's the third person on my right, the woman there. She's descended from the same person as me. His name is Alexander Nault, and his wife Matilda Carrier. Matilda was a daughter of Damas Carrier, who was killed at Batoche. So she's a descendant from the same great-great-grandparents as me. And she and all of them, these other carriers, live in BC. So they met each other already. And again, it was through being online, and they didn't live too far from one another. But they attended together, actually. They came together to this event. I was able to meet them. It was just a really great experience to be able to do that. We keep in touch even more since then. And some of them have met with other ancestors or descendants. Sorry, I guess it's time is up. I better finish. So I hope that this presentation reflects the rich tapestry of Métis heritage, and it commemorates our people's resilience in history and identity. And I hope it captured the spirit and essence of the gathering, which is a testament to the enduring spirit, culture, and legacy of the Métis. So thank you very much. for listening, and then I'll just stop sharing there, and we can go on to the next presentation.
Thank you so